Hello, everybody. We're here today with Shani Sutcliffe, beautiful Shani. I work with Shani actually in Main Lodge in Spencer, and I'm just so happy to share her with you today. Welcome, Shani.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Now,
Yeah.
one of the things that I really admire about you, Shani, is that you've been through a tough journey to get to this point. And perhaps you can share a little bit of that with us so that we know it and go from there.
As we can. Right. Lovely childhood. Grew up in a lovely, loving family home with a sister, mum and a dad, grandparents on both sides. Pretty much idyllic until the age of about 18. When my sister found my granddad's death certificate saying he'd hung himself. We'd been told 4 years earlier he'd had a heart attack. So that was the starting point of when life started to change. The idyllic, loving family with all it was pretty perfect. Normal problems, but pretty perfect. Started to change. My mum got into a major depression once she had to acknowledge that her dad had been hung, and she had to disclose it to me and my sister. It was really painful for her, and I think for 4 years she'd lived a lie. And then we saw my mum go into a massive depression. And she deteriorated so much to the extent she ended up taking her life as well. Partly due to drug-induced psychosis, a drug called Seroxat, and I know there's loads of legal cases out there. But at the time, we just didn't do anything about it. Now, my mum's suicide wasn't normal. She was missing for 15 days. My dad got accused of a murder. It was pretty horrific to be 20 years of age going through that, and to actually be told by your tearful granddad and dad stood at your family home's door that your mum was dead was pretty hard. And I remember I just ran. I kept running. I went into immediate fight and flight. Not that I knew that then. I just knew I had to run. And from that moment onwards, my body just shook uncontrollably for about 3 or 4 days, and I started to have massive faints. To the extent I was diagnosed with malignant fainting and had to have pacemaker surgeries, and just really got worse and worse. Never dealt with the trauma of my mum's death. We did the stiff upper lip British thing, went back to work, carried on with life, and it caught up with me 10 years later, actually, when I myself went into a massive deep depression. It finally hit me, and it was actually at a time when I was probably most joyful since my mum had died. I was married, settled in York, easy job. And I think it was the first time I'd actually allowed myself to feel safe enough to grieve. It was tough. And I shock. I thought that was something soldiers got. I didn't understand my depression and anxiety was all linked to my mum's death, really, and my physical illness was linked to my mum's death. My mum's death physically broke my heart and changed its circuitry. I understand that now. So I went through that, and then I got hit with a pacemaker infection 4 years ago. Got severe sepsis, had a terrible near-death experience. Had endocarditis, heart infection, vegetation growing in my heart, hospitalised for 3 months, and then the year after got diagnosed with thyroid cancer. So it's been a bit of a journey, and there's been a lot of why me going on. But this last year, I've sort of discovered why not me. And this year's been the year that I've grown and found my peace. It's taken a long time. So that's it in a nutshell, pretty summarised, and not all the detail, but it's where I'm at now, at peace.
Yeah, and you've grown so much actually, Shani, since I've known you. And one of the things that's you've told me about that's helped with your perception of life has been near-death experiences, which you have had 2 of.
Yeah.
And how actually did they change your perception of life?
I think that basically I think you do touch something bigger than yourselves, and I think you are actually touching God and maybe other things as well, because what I touched wasn't positive. My near-death experience was when I was in a hallucinating state, when I was in the middle of severe sepsis, and basically I was transported to a wall of devils who was stealing all my loved ones. I was transported to an African plane with African ladies with dead babies on their breasts. And I came out of that very fearful and very frightened. But that is when I think my faith was tested, and that's when Jesus kicked in, and that's when I started to be carried. So even though I'd seen extreme, evil, horrible things, that's when I really felt God's presence. And it's almost like he sent me angels. He sent me people from chaplaincy who brought me an olive cross. He gave me a strength. After going through that, I then had to face death again. I had to plan my funeral because I got told that my heart surgery may kill me and that I might not wake up from surgery. But I knew that day that God was carrying me. God really, really, he's always been there. But I felt he stepped up and he was carrying me. And I've always felt like I've been sat in the palm of his hand ever since. So I think it's made me understand the only thing that matters when you're actually facing death full on, when you've written your notes for your funeral and decided what you're going to play at your funeral and how it's going to go, that's a real wake-up call. And the only thing you think about is people and love. You don't think about anything else. So it's given me such a brilliant perception now, because the only thing that matters is love and people. Everything else we can sort out, but love and people, it's essential to us all. And that's what my near-death experience gave me. It gave me a simplicity of life to just look at what's there in front of you, the people that are there for you, the love, and the love that Jesus feels for you and God feels for you, and with him anything's possible. So yeah, it's an enlightening moment. It's the most frightening moment of my life, but such blessings have come from it, and it's trusting that he's going to be there for you.
Yeah, and one of the things that you really brought to light there is the fact that in the darkest times, where you can see and know the darkness, which you did, that is when you also meet God. You meet the purest beauty and the essence of all that is comes forth in that time as well. And you know what I've discovered about you is that you embody that beauty of, just popped off and I hope she's going to come back, but I'll just go to talk a little bit about what I know of Shani, because she really does work with God. She really does, through her treatments, connect with the essence of all that is, and she really is in presence and gives you all that you need in that moment of time. And not only that, but
What happened then?
I was just saying, Shani, about how you are in presence with your clients and how you connect with God and Jesus in every treatment that you do, because I was just explaining what I know of you whilst you disappeared. Are you there still? No? Okay. So, are you there, Shani?
Yeah, I
Yes.
am. I'm so
Okay,
sorry. I don't know
that's
what's
all right.
happening
The
with it.
connection's not good wherever you are, but I was just saying how you're in presence with people when you're working with them,
Yeah.
and how you work with all that is with God and with Jesus to give each person that comes to you all that they require in that moment of time. And that's something that's part of your essence now, to do
And I
that.
think that's the essential thing. It's understanding we're just facilitators, and that when you're in work where you're helping others, you actually include Jesus all the time. And the minute someone sits in front of you, it's a three-way thing. It's you, the individual, and Jesus. It's not just you two, and it always has to be that way. Without it, you don't get the same results. On a human level, it's not the same. They'll get some healing, I think, just from an energy point of view, but true healing comes from a request that Jesus is present, and to ask for specifics as well for that individual. And I'm sure God knows anyway, but it's almost like a politeness to ask for those things. And things do occur in my treatments when I'm asking for certain things. I can feel it changing. There is presence always if you request it.
Yeah, I mean, you're very kind of visual as well through it all, because you actually see things in the feet as well of where people are at in their journey. You see names, you see symbolism, and things showing up to assist them going forward as well. You're very visual.
Yeah, and that's something that used to frighten me initially, because I think when you first actually start seeing things and you do open your eyes and you do start listening, then that's when you have to take notice and use the information that's given to you from above, whether it be letters, pictures. You pass it on to help that person heal.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, sorry, it's like this. It's buffering all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
As
so
long
it's
as you don't
essential that
disappear and we can hear you, then that's good. It's all good. Sometimes I'm just going to explain this, because sometimes when we're speaking our truth, we're just so our energy is such a high vibration that it actually can boot you off the internet, if you like. When your vibration is high, it can actually boot you off the internet. So that's kind of what happens sometimes. It's just how it is. So it's all good. So you were talking before about finding your peace. How did you find your peace and use the lessons of your journey to assist in the love and service of others?
It was a long journey to find that peace, and it was lack of knowledge and education, and I think also it was not understanding our bodies physiologically. I think there's two parts to this. There's finding God, trusting God and having faith in God, but there's also understanding our primeval body and brain, and understanding about trauma, because the state I was in was a state of trauma. I just didn't recognise it, and any amount of counselling and talking about trauma is not going to clear it. It's essential to get proper trauma therapy, EMDR, because if you keep talking about that trauma and the brain perceives it as a current threat, which is that's what trauma does to us, you're just actually making your brain go through that same trauma again and again and again. So I found my peace after years of talking therapy. I actually found my peace when I actually had the trauma work done, and we actually dulled the memories, and we got the primeval brain to actually understand it wasn't under threat. So my mum's death had become a sort of threat state, a fight and flight state, and I'd got stuck in it, and my brain was trying to protect me, and the switch had gone on, it hadn't gone off. So with the EMDR therapy, the switch was turned off, and the memories were allowed to fade to an extent that they were manageable rather than overwhelming. I was still crying tears 20 years on, the same I was crying on the day of the news. But with the trauma work, that stopped. So I think it's been a two-way thing. It's been a physiological thing and understanding myself physiologically and how trauma affects us, and also understanding that we need to let God in to support us. So it's been a two-pronged attack. And we're primeval beings. We've got a primeval brain. We've got fight and flight mechanisms in our body that will stay switched on when you've been traumatized. And it's about managing that properly and getting the right support. So I'd say get the right support, get the trauma sorted, and then work with God. Open yourself to God and allow Him to support you. My image of myself is sitting in His palm and Him carrying me through, and I think He pointed me in the right direction for all the trauma work. It was God's timing, and I needed to go through the years of anguish and pain. But once you understand that God's timing is something bigger than us individually, it may be affecting the universe. My suffering needed to happen, and it's equipped me now to help other people, because I've had so many different health problems, emotional and physical. I can now recognize that in my clients and assist them. If I'd not gone through that, I won't be equipped to do it. So I don't regret any of it. I regret nothing. At the time, it was tough, really tough, suicidally tough sometimes, but it was my lesson and it was my journey, and it's about trusting. Even things are absolutely dark and they seem like they're never going to change, that it's okay, that God's got you and it will pass. And a really, really wise man told me that, a really brilliant psychotherapist who did EMDR. His message was, this will pass, Shani. And it did pass, and now the blessings are coming from all that trauma and all that hurt. And I feel I'm where I'm supposed to be now, and I'm equipped through all the suffering and all the pain. I'm now equipped to go on and help others. And I'm not bitter anymore. I was bitter and resentful for a long, long time. I've let the bitterness go. I used to blame God. It's not God. It's definitely not God who does this to us. It's life, and it's other factors in life, negative things that are around in this earth. There's light and there's dark, and sometimes it's the darkness, and God carries us through it. But the darkness is powerful, and it's recognizing that as well, and respecting that evil can get a hold, and it does. And I had an experience where I think evil did leave me, and it screamed out of my body, and it sounds really odd, and I'm not this kind of person who talks about things like this, but something left me when my cancer left me. And I do think it's when I got my trust and faith in God. I told myself and I told everything around me that God was all powerful, and I was wrapped in the armour of God. And I did feel fully protected, and I trusted it, and it worked, and the evil left. And my cancer's cured now, and I'm well. So yeah, it's about faith and trust, and never giving up. Don't ever, ever give up. Just know that God's carrying you in His palm. He never leaves you. He's always there. So just trust in that and talk to Him, basically, and ask for His support. So yes, I do finally feel at peace, which is lovely. It's really nice. Life's still hard, but it's nice to wake up every day and feel it at peace. So yeah, so that's a bit about how I found my peace.
Yeah, and it's wonderful as well, because you've given some absolute key factors in there, in that light can't exist without darkness. So there's always that equal balance, and but everything is created by God. So that emphasis that you gave there of just being in the presence of and believing in and knowing that God is there and present with you all the time is a key factor to going through anything and everything in your life. And it's all right. It's all right. I just was finishing off what I was saying and reiterating, that even though there is equal light and dark, God created all things. So ultimately, it's the belief and the faith and the trust that takes you through everything. And as I said before, it's in the darkest moments that the most pure moments of God come into your life as well.
It's so true. And it's knowing even in those dark moments, that's when your faith has to kick in. And it's knowing that he's there still and that you are being carried. And that's the test in a way, that if you can still feel that faith and trust in those darkest moments, you will come through it. You will. And just keep praying and keep asking and keep trusting, because you will come through. Never lose that light and that faith. So yeah, you've got to be determined. But he's never left me. I know that now. I doubted it. I really did, and I was angry for a long time. But I was angry at the wrong thing. So just keep the positivity and the lightness going, because you will come through it.
Yeah. Because you're becoming really like a beacon of light for all those that have been through similar experiences. I mean, you are already, because I'm witnessing it through a friend of yours who's also been through suicide, and your close friend was the person who committed suicide. And as well as all what you've already told us about your mum and your grandfather and everything else, and how has all this affected you and what you feel your method is and your service is going forward in the kind of humanity whole? Oh, it's buffering again. It's just because we're in our truth, everybody. When we're just very powerfully in our truth here, Shani. So that's all it is. Okay. So what I'm going to say is, did you hear my question?
No, I missed it. I'm so sorry.
Okay. I was just saying, because you witnessed the suicide in your family and also the suicide of a close friend, as well. And how has this affected you and your journey in regards to how you feel you're moving forward for the humanity whole?
I believe that everything's been coming to this moment. Even being there for my friend's husband, we'd have never expected her to take her own life by hanging. And it was drug-induced hanging, it was contraindicated antidepressants, and there's a legal case going on. But I'm able to help my friend because I've walked in his shoes. And rather than him wait 20 years to get the help like I did, I've been able to step in and give him directions to go to, people to see, support, and being able to say, look, this is what may happen to you, this is how you're going to feel. I couldn't even talk about death until my mum and grandfather died. And it's only when you deal with something like suicide, when your friends are crossing the street, because they don't know what to do with you, because you don't fit any sort of holes sort of socially anymore, and people are frightened of you when you're grieving. And it's the time when we need people not to be frightened, and when it's the time, what I learned from my experience is we've got to communicate. We've got to speak about people. We've got to speak about death. People who are grieving want to talk about the loved ones that have gone. It's not going to upset them. Yeah, you might have a few tears, but we need to honour people who have left this earth. And we need to talk about the good stuff. What I've learned from my mum's suicide is I allowed the last event to take away 20 years of brilliant joy, love, times, happiness. And I dwelled on the end event. And what I've learned to do now is to honour the life before the serious traumatic event. My mum was an amazing lady, and I was dishonouring her by just looking at that end event, because that wasn't her. So when we lose someone in that way, it's essential that we honour the part of life that they had that was positive. And I think possibly for people when they get really poorly and change and you grieve for the person, like Alzheimer's, you lose the person. We must concentrate on the bit before the illness, the bit that gave us joy, because that's what they'd want for us. The people that have left this earth and left their earthly body, their souls are within our hearts. Their love never leaves our hearts. And we must honour that. We have to grieve. We have to get support. We have to be sad. We have to go through the grief cycle, which takes at least 18 months to go through properly. We need to honour that we need to do that, but we also need to remember the beautiful, wonderful times we had with them, because that's what they'll be longing for us to do. They're in a different place now, and they'll be longing for us to live this gift that's life. The life that is still here is the gift, and it's tough when you're grieving. It's tough when you've lost someone traumatically. But we've got to hold on to the positivity before the event and remember that, because that is them, not the end bit. And that's what really hurts. We need to get help so we can actually see the good bit again. And I didn't. I just dwelled on the negative end bit, and it destroyed me. And I allowed that negativity to almost, well, it almost killed me physically and emotionally. And I didn't allow God in. I pushed God away. He was always with me, but I chose not to let him in. So we always need to remember it's not God. God does everything out of love. And you know, these things happen, and it's bigger than we can comprehend. So it's acceptance, and just knowing it's all about love. And remember the joy of the human being, because your loved ones, wherever they are now, would want you to be smiling and enjoying your life. They'd hate you to be sad. So always remember that, and that you carry them in your genes and in your heart. No one's going to take that away. And feel your chest and think of them and have an image of them in your head that makes you smile. And that's what I've been working on through my trauma work. I have an image of my mum that makes me smile now, rather than makes me want to flop on the floor and cry. So it's about perception, even of the most negative thing. Remember the good stuff. It's not easy, but it can be done, and that's when the peace comes. So yeah, just try.
Yeah, because what you're bringing light to there is the fact that the pure feelings are peace, love, courage, and joy. And you encompass all of those, and through your experiences have just become those things. I remember you saying to me that you had many surgeries on your heart or pacemaker.
Yeah.
Was it 11?
Yeah.
11 surgeries? Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, but you actually went through the experience of it as well. You felt it, didn't you? The drugs didn't work correctly.
Yeah, and that was another traumatic thing for different reasons. It was physically traumatic, because I have a condition where I don't make collagen, so anaesthetics don't work efficiently, and I only found out a few years ago. So on my surgeries I had under local anaesthetic, all 11, I could feel what was happening, and they kept saying I'd had loads and loads of local anaesthetic, but I could still feel it all. So I felt like my physical body had almost been traumatized as well as my emotional body. And I was quite resentful because I know my heart condition was as a result of the trauma. I used to blame the event, my mum, for all the surgeries. Every time I was laid there, I was blaming and being resentful. I didn't understand. It was nothing to do with my mum. Yeah, the actual event caused me physical injury, and it did affect my heart, and I didn't know that was possible. It's a term, you're broken hearted. Literally, my heart consultant says you literally are broken hearted. He said the surgery, the suicide news actually changed the circuitry in your heart, and it's a recognised condition when you read about it. We do become heartbroken through emotional stress. And that's why a lot of couples tend to die quite close together when they've been really in love, because they're physically heartbroken. So yeah, that trauma was completely different to having the emotional trauma. But again, it needs treating within the same way. If you've had any physical trauma of any kind, and there's lots of different things that can occur to us in this life, please recognise that it can be PTSD. And again, it needs treating, it needs dealing with. If you're feeling anxious, depressed, you're getting flashbacks, you're getting images coming into your head, you're forgetful, you're more angry than normal, it can all be PTSD. And you don't always recognise it, because you sort of think as human beings, unless you're a soldier out in a war zone, that you can get PTSD, but we're all susceptible to it. You don't have to be on a battlefield. It can be a surgery, it can be an accident, it can be seeing something that someone else does, or someone does something to you that they shouldn't have done. Get the help and support and talk about it. And you must voice what's going on and find the right support for yourself. Find charities, go on the internet, don't just stick to the NHS. Look wider, and get the right support and talk and speak your truth. I didn't speak my truth for years. Don't confine yourself in a mask that doesn't allow you to speak your truth. Your truth is essential. We make our own prisons. We need to sometimes take the bars down, and it takes courage sometimes. But with the right support, you can do it. And I've had friends who've gone through child abuse, and it's taken them 20 years to speak their truths, but they're doing it, and they're actually freeing themselves from their own prisons, the prisons that these other individuals have created for them. They're starting to tear the bars down because they're speaking the truth and getting the support. Never be ashamed, and never doubt your body or your brain. It's your best friend, and what it's telling you is the truth. Don't let the establishment, NHS, doctors, don't let them doubt what you're feeling and what you've experienced. You know it's the truth. I doubted my sanity because I had medical people telling me one thing and another. Your body's your best friend. Don't ever, ever, ever doubt it. And you have to literally be a Rottweiler and not let go of the bone. And you've got to scream and shout, and you've got to keep pushing to get the support. You know your truth. Don't ever give in, but don't do it alone. Find the support out there. So yeah, just keep going.
That's a very, very powerful point that you made there about standing in truth, because so many of us listen to people that we consider to be powerful, like doctors, and quite often they come into a situation with a picture of who they think you are, rather than who you are, and your truth is very different. So they're trying to kind of make the picture out of you, and you're like, they're going, actually, no, my truth is this, I'm going to achieve it. and you make it happen. And you so powerfully do that. Shani, you're an example to many of how to be, how to overcome and stand in their power, because being truthful is standing in your power. It's claiming the truth of who you are. And that's why we keep getting booted off the internet.
I know, people don't know this stuff.
Our power's too much for electronics. But no, it's very, very true. And actually, what you've said there, I mean, I've said to you ever since I've known you and we've spoken, because I'm extremely busy. At first, we hardly saw each other. But when we have spoken, one of the things I've always said to you is that you're going to move beyond the four walls of the Redmayne Lodge. And even though you are an amazing visual person, an amazing reflexologist, I can vouch. You have, a tremendous ability to support people. And I see that every day from you as well, where people are in shock with news they've received about their health or whatever. And you give them the extra time. You hear them, you give them the opportunity to speak their truth of what they feel and the news. And that's highly, highly valuable. And that support mechanism that you give people is not something everyone does or everyone can do. It is something that I see you do daily, without even questioning it. And that's what I see you doing more of through here, not just through your clients at Redmayne, but worldwide, being a support so that people understand their experiences, because you've been through so much, and you know so much because of it, and you do stand in your power, and more you are doing so. And I just feel that that is who you are to the world, which is why I'm saying it here.
And I know that's why I've been given these things to deal with now. I understand it now. And even the most traumatic of what I've been through has been a gift for other people in a way, because I can see other people's things. And there has been a lot in my lifetime. I've gone through quite a bit, and I'm fine about it now. I wasn't for a long time, but I am now. But it's once you understand that everything that's around us, your time, your possessions, everything is God's. So you can give it freely. It's not yours to give. You're giving it from God. So you don't have to hold on to stuff. And people often think that they have to give financially, but it's more than that. In this day and age, time is massive, and that little bit of time given to someone can make such a huge difference. And it's just actually seeing, like you say, it's actually slowing your life down enough to see what's going on around you and actually pick up on messages from people, individuals, strangers, and just spending that extra few minutes if you're in a coffee bar and someone wants to talk. That's the gift of love and service. It can be every day of your life in everything you do. And love is a verb. It's action. It can be said it's a noun. It's not. It's a doing word. And if you're not doing it, you're not actually loving. Because you need to actually do something when you're showing love. It takes you to do something. It takes effort. But the investment you give, what you get back, oh my goodness, you get back so many things, not always financially, But God makes sure when you give, there is reward, there's peace. And I just wish people could slow down and see what's going on right in front of their noses, and to love themselves and give themselves time. Because that's a lot of my clients' problems. They don't stop to love themselves and give themselves a little bit of time, and give themselves time to reflect and think about what's actually happening in their life. You need to stand and step off the roller coaster basically sometimes to actually see what's going on, and make changes in your life, because we're only here for a short time. And always remember that it's only people that matter. And is your top priority people at the moment? You need to ask yourself that question. You need to ask yourself, is what you're doing coming from a place of love? Is what you're receiving coming from a place of love? If it's not, you need to change. And that's my simple rule every day. Is what I'm doing coming from a place of love? And if it's not, you give yourself a kick up the backside and you change it. And it takes effort sometimes, but it becomes more normal the more you do it. So yeah, just slow down and see what's around, and breathe and take some time. Look at your family, look at your children, look at your grandparents, look at your neighbours, and just spend a couple of seconds and minutes with them, and you'll discover so much, and there'll be so much reward if you do that. So just step back, and step out of this busy, hurried life to see what's actually going on, and look at yourself. Do you like yourself as you are? If not, start to make some changes, and they're usually really simple changes that you need to make. And I think the first one is giving yourself time to actually reflect, and that's what I offer my clients a lot of the time, just some time to reflect and rest. And pull away from society, establishment, industry. Go spend time in nature. Myself and Shona are very much into spending time in nature. Just sit and look at the sky. That's important for you to do to heal. Get your priorities right.
Yeah. The best things in life are free, as they say.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, Shani, thank you so much for just pouring your heart out here and speaking your truth with us today, and sharing you with the world. Yeah, I'm seeing big things afoot for you, as you know already. But
to help and support I can do.
Yeah.
We're very blessed where we are in the world, and we're free. We often say that, we don't often appreciate how lucky we are, and we do understand there's people going to be watching this that are not free like us, and it's more difficult for you. We get that, but we hope that we can offer support and we can listen. So yeah, you're helping anyway. That's what we're here to do. Like you always say, Shona, love and serve.
Yes, that is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. That is what we're here for. Because just giving someone that recognition of a listening ear so much, and it's highly valuable to them. And as you've said so eloquently here, that it's something that you're so wonderfully good at, and it's an attribute that we share, the ability to just give people that time to just have that recognition so that they can speak and know that they're cared for and recognized. And that's a crucial element of restoring humanity. If I just want to say to everybody, if they want to connect with Shani, because of her vast knowledge of many things that you may have experienced, you can go to our website, itsatoughworldouthere.com, and connect with her through the links that are there, and she'll always be at the other end to hear you. I know that from my own personal experience. So thank you very much, Shani, for being with us today and sharing beautiful you with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for the place to do it as well. Thank you, Shona. Bless you. Bless everybody out there as well.
Yeah. Thank you.